I'd like to tell you something about prostate cancer, Procure. I will take a few minutes to tell you who we are. We know that in Quebec, there are 4,600 Quebecers diagnosed with prostate cancer. That's why Procure was founded in 2003, the only charitable organization in Quebec to be devoted entirely to the fight against prostate cancer. We work on 3 fronts: research, awareness, education, and support. In terms of research, we set up in 2007 a biobank. This was a collective project among Quebec, the CHUM, the MUCH, the CHUS, the CHU of Quebec, McGill, Quebec, and the Research Fund of Quebec. How does it work? It collects, processes, and stores high-quality biological samples, clinical data, and socio-demographic data from men with prostate cancer. We've had a few new steps for the biobank. Provision of 4,100 high-quality samples made available for 2 major pilot projects, one in Quebec, the other in the U.S. International recognition by researchers and specialists in prostate cancer, and an affiliation to the Global Directory of Biobanks. Just to tell you that each 80 cents goes to the cause, 60 cents to the biobank. In terms of awareness, November 19th is the Prostate Cancer Quebec Awareness Day. It was adopted officially by the National Assembly in November 2014. In November, for us, it's Bovember. It's our annual campaign for the whole month. You can, bow ties are available on procure.ca. This year, our 2 main ambassadors are Penelope McQuaid, Winston McQuaid, who's had prostate cancer. A few ambassadors that we also have, you'll recognize them: Jean Pagé, Kim Rusk, Marie-Pierre Morin, Jean-Michel Anctil, Charles Hamelin. They have been committed to wear the bow tie in November. In terms of awareness, we also have 2 major events: the Walk of Courage and the Tour of Courage. These are 2 events that are held on Father's Day weekend. This allows us to get the funds we need to invest in research and information events like the one tonight. In terms of information and support, there are 7 good reasons to use Procure's support services. First of all, our 24/7 toll-free number. It's used in urology and prostate cancer. They're there to answer your questions. You just have to phone that 1-800 number. You can call several times if you have several questions, and they'll call you back within 24 hours. This is a service that is very much appreciated currently. Obviously, we have our website, procure.ca, where you can obtain medical information. We have our conference series. There are 2, year 1 in April in Montreal, October, Quebec, and they are sent there. Even if it's in Montreal, you can watch it on the web. We have our blog. There are 3 articles per month on various themes. In October, the subject is incontinence. We've also talked of erectile dysfunction. So do not hesitate to go on our site. We have our newsletter twice a year. You can see what we've done. We also have our free book. If you contact us, we'll send it to you, as well as our new publications. We can send you everything by mail. And at the end of the day, it's really to make a difference. To date, we have been able to invest $4.6 million in research on prostate cancer through the biobank. We've responded to more than 5,000 calls or emails from men with prostate cancer and their close ones. and we've organized more than 300 general public conferences throughout Quebec. Some people asked a number of questions concerning the book on prostate cancer. It is free of charge. You just need to contact us at Procure, and we will send it to you. I also wanted to repeat that we have specialized nurses to answer your questions. It's a 1-800 line. When you have questions, you can contact them. They'll take the time needed to answer your questions or your concerns. And if you want to call them back, if you have any others, you don't hesitate. So don't hesitate. For the book, contact us. We will send it to you. We're going to go now to the second speaker that we have tonight. Her name is Claudia Brown. She has given her Bachelor of Science in Physiotherapy and her Master's from McGill. She is a clinical physiotherapist who works on pelvic issues for more than 25 years. She is at McGill Faculty of Medicine. She teaches physiotherapy students with issue about disorders of the pelvis. She's also on the Association of People with Incontinence. She owns Polyclinic Cabrini Clinic in Montreal and Concord in Laval. I'd like you to welcome Claudia Brown. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm very happy to be here tonight to talk to you post-surgery incontinence and physiotherapy. We see a lot of men who have this problem. We understand them and we can help them. Tonight, this is what I try to tell you, is to talk about incontinence problems and to give you some advice. The objective of my presentation is to have an open discussion about incontinence people have after prostate surgery. I'd like to explain the pelvis and the urinary control and to provide practical advice to men to help them manage their incontinence issues. So Dr. Nadeau explained what incontinence is post-surgery. It can be a couple of drops to a real running tap. It's usually not so bad when you're lying down, and it happens when you change positions. A lot of our patients will see that these problems increase during the day, as Dr. Nadeau mentioned. So we have stress and urgency incontinence. There are many reasons for that after prostate surgery. Do you have a pointer? Oh, here it is. Just to talk to you about how it works, just to review what Dr. Nadeau said. Before the surgery, you have the bladder, prostate, and you have... Dr. Nadeau talked a lot about the sphincter. That is the muscle that closes the urethra that is in the pelvis floor. Before the surgery, to urinate, the urine has to go through the sphincter, the internal, through the prostate, the external, and then the pelvic floor. So when the prostate is gone, the bladder has few barriers. The only one is the pelvic floor and the external sphincter. So the bladder has to adapt to a new reality. Used to have to press on it to get the urine out, and that's not necessary anymore. There are fewer barriers. That's why a lot of men, like Dr. Nadeau said, that they will improve between 6 to 12 months, even 24 months, is because the bladder has to adapt this new reality of the body. This is stress-related incontinence. When you cough, sneeze, if you lift up your grandchild, there's a pressure on the bladder, and all these bladders will prevent it from leaking. But after the surgery, when you do these things, this pressure, there will be fewer obstacles, and you can have leakage, especially for stress incontinence. Urgency is different. The bladder is relaxed after surgery, The bladder contracts also, and it contracts with fewer barriers. People with urgency have to go really quickly, immediately. And with stress incontinence, it's more when you're going to cough or sneeze. When we see this a lot in our patients. So what happens when you have incontinence? There's a lot of emotion and taboo. When the cancer, even if the doctor mentions, she's too close to the mic, everything I'm hearing. After the surgery, they have a feeling that they leak a lot. There's a big, patients are surprised and they're angry. And then there's a denial. They don't want to talk about our wife. They don't want to talk to our children. They want to hide the problem. And you might be resigned to the problem, and eventually you're going to accept the problem, and we will be. I don't know if you recognize these stages, but this is like mourning. Often when you have something that you're not used to in your life, there are different stages. I don't know in your situations in this room if you have incontinence problem or if you know people who have incontinence. You may have gone through these different stages and it's normal. What I'd like to do today is to give you a few strategies and solutions that are conservative. We call them that because these are what we try to do before you are stuck with surgery. There are a lot of things you can do. There are 5 things. Adjustments for your diet is to have a urinary calendar. Kegel's exercise, it means to lock your print, and there are products. I'm going to talk about each of these. So adjusting your diet, you might have noticed that coffee and tea, as soon as you drink that, you have more urgency and more leakage, and that's normal because coffee goes directly to the bladder and causes the bladder to contract more. So if it's already facing a different situation, now with coffee you can have more leakage, so avoid coffee, colas, and for some men, spicy foods. It makes the bladder more active and there'll be more leakage. A lot of patients say, well, because I'm losing a lot of urine, I'm not drinking water. But it's not a good idea, because if you don't drink a lot of water, your urine is very concentrated and the bladder really hates that. It's very happy to have big urine that is diluted. It doesn't like concentrated urine. If you don't drink water, it'll be concentrated and you'll have more leaks. And water is good for the bladder because it'll make it easier for it to contract and expand. So drinking water and try to avoid coffee, tea, and cola. The other solution is one that is very practical that you can do at home, is to have a diary. There are many reasons to do this. It will help you understand how your bladder works and find strategies how to solve some of these problems. I'm going to go into some detail because I think it's one of the solutions that can be helpful. To do that, you can just write down every time you go to the bathroom, when you have urgency, when you drank coffee, when you drank water, when you changed your pads. There's a lot of information that you can put on this calendar. You can find them on the internet and on the Foundation of People with Incontinence. There is a calendar that you can download on your computer. So the diary will help you understand what your bladder is doing and develop strategies to control it. And like Dr. Nadeau said, it will help explain the situation to your HCP. You know that it takes a long time to get an appointment, And if you could really take advantage of that appointment as much as possible, the doctor will ask tons of questions about your bladder, and if you have a diary, you will understand enough to really answer him and help him help you. So when in the diary, you indicate the frequency. Every time you urinate, you put a U, maybe one at 6, one at 6:15, and maybe at 10, 10:30. Write down every time you urinate. The normal frequency is to 5 to 8 times a day. After prostate surgery, because there's a lot of leakage, the bladder doesn't really fill up totally, and men don't feel that they have to go because it's always leaking. But you have to try and establish like a pattern to urinate regularly, 5 to 8 times a day. Every 2 hours or every 2 to 3 hours. So try to look at your watch. I'm going to try and go if it's been 2 hours. So you explain to the bladder that there is a pattern, and it shouldn't empty itself out all of the time. So when you see on your diary, I'm only going twice a day, that's not a good idea. Try to urinate and try to listen to your body's needs. Because the bladder doesn't fill up as much, you don't feel you have to go. And also see if you urinate at night. Also, there's quantity. You have to accumulate urine. Often you don't accumulate enough because it leaks too much. There are people, as soon as we take out the catheter, it's like a tap. What we suggest is that they lie down at least once a day for at least 20 minutes to give the bladder time to accumulate urine. Because in the morning you get up, your bladder is full, and you feel you have to go and get to the bathroom. So you have to recreate that situation in your life. So once or twice a day, lie down for 20-25 minutes. Your bladder will accumulate. You'll feel a need to go. You'll go. And you're trying to educate your bladder as how to function normally. So on your calendar, you will write every time you have a leakage. Some have all the time, but others will realize that, oh, I get a leak when I pick up my grandson, or when I get up and I've been sitting down, when I cough, I sneeze. If you write these situations when you have leakage, you'll see when you have to use a strategy. Oh, I leak more in the afternoon. Maybe it's because I'm tired. So I'm going to exercise in the afternoon. So I'll lie down at noon, rest, do a bit of exercise for my pelvic floor to really control it. If you jot down the circumstances of the leakage, you'll be able to tell your doctor, I have leaks, stress leaks and non-stress leaks. Another thing you can jot down are the urgency incontinence. That is important to know. Do you have them often or not? If you have urgency and you write down coffee on your calendar, you'll think, oh, I have those right after coffee, so maybe it's the coffee causing this. It really helps you to understand how the bladder works. It's like a reservoir that works automatically, but there's a lot of control that you can have on your bladder if you concentrate with your brain. And like I said, you can indicate the liquids that you've had. Did I drink water today? Did I drink coffee? Is that when I leak? When I drink tea? So you can write that down. The other thing you can write down are the protection or pads that you use. Like Dr. Nadeau said, we rely a lot on how the progression of your situation by counting the pads that you use. We need to know what type of pads you're using, thin ones, thick ones, diapers, and that gives us a good idea. Another thing is encouraging. You do your calendar today, and you do another one in 6 weeks. There might be a change, and it's very encouraging. Since I stopped drinking coffee, I'm doing better, sort of since I've been exercising. So it is good to compare one and then maybe another one 6 weeks later. You might see, oh, I used to use a lot of pads and I use less now. This is how we see in physiotherapy how people are improving is through the use of their pads. Men realize that they're still using pads, but they're not really full anymore. Often, the best thing to do is to use the thinnest one you need, because your body and your brain will know, I have to work harder because this pad is thin. We sort of use it as a crutch, just in case. But if you use a thinner one, you might, contract your muscle to control the leakage. The next thing are the Kegel exercises, and that's what Dr. Nadeau. This is what we call first line. We always suggest that men exercise before surgery, even before medication. So we heard about Kegel exercise, it's just the name of the man who invented these exercises, and they're done for the pelvic floor. It calms the bladder and it helps the sphincter, the urethra. When we do sports, it's the same thing. We can't always work the muscle. We have to work endurance, strengths. So that's just squeezing and relaxing. It's not always just that one thing that we have to do. You can do these exercises. You could be doing them now, and I don't know, because the muscles are hidden. So there's no excuse not to do them. You can do them in the car, at the movies, anywhere. Don't need equipment, and it's easy to do. Just to explain how to do them. In physiotherapy, we can be more specific, but you'll probably be able to understand. The pelvic floor is this muscle here. It is really the floor, the bottom of the pelvis. That muscle is important not just for urine, but for tons of other things. It's called a body stabilizer. If I get up and I jump on one leg, I need that pelvic floor to be not to fall. I need the abdominals and the back muscles. But the pelvic floor stabilizes the spine. This is a view from the top, and you see that the muscle is really a floor. It keeps all your organs in. Here we see it again. It stabilizes the body and supports all of this because there's no bone there. So to support the rectum, the prostate, the bladder, all of the organs here, it is really this muscle. So it helps you keep your balance, supporting your organs, and now to help you control your urine. So you must exercise this muscle. When the prostate is gone, we put the urethra here, we tie it here. People don't realize the fact that it's pulled here means the penis goes in a little bit. So the penis is a bit shorter after surgery. A lot of patients are very surprised by that. But the strength of this muscle will help close this. It's the same muscle that we use to prevent gas and stools. So the muscle has to know how to contract, not to urinate or not to have a bowel movement. How do you do these exercises? If I asked you to curl your biceps, you'll know what to do. But the muscle of the pelvic floor is hidden. You can all try right now. I won't know. Tighten up your anus and the basis of the penis. If you look at yourself in the mirror, you'll see the penis moving a bit. That is the contraction. It is the same muscle that works when you want to interrupt urination. Start urinating, stop in the middle of it, But don't do that regularly. We'd ask you not to stop urinating while you're urinating, just maybe once a week to see how good you are and if you can, and if you've got the right muscle. It doesn't require much strength. It's a movement of the skin. Just, when you close your eyes, it just closes skin. You try to tighten up the anus and the bottom of the penis. Your face can't turn red while you're doing this, and your pelvis shouldn't move. If you're lying down and you're wearing underwear, it shouldn't move. It really just a really private muscle contraction. Hold it 5 seconds. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then let it go for 5. Some people don't relax enough, so you have to take the time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you let go for 10 seconds. You do that 10 times, and you do it 5 times a day. Once you've mastered that, you have to work something else in the muscle. It's speed. They'll say, but Claudia, if I cough, I tighten up the muscle and I'm not going to leak. But when I sneeze, I don't have time. So you have to work on speed. So, squeeze, let go, squeeze, let go, squeeze, let go. And before you sneeze, you'll have time to contract your muscle. It's really like a clamp. You can also do less intense contractions. Some people says it's when I'm standing up for a long time at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So you have to work endurance. So you squeeze in half, but for a long time. So instead of contracting completely, you just do it very slightly, but for longer. Eventually, what we want to keep that contraction for 60 seconds. You should be able to do that. And that will train the pelvic floor to have more endurance. Once you know those, you will do perennial locking. Usually it's coming out of the car. Patients have a problem. So before you get out of the car, put your 2 feet on the ground, squeeze your pelvic floor, and then you get up. If you do that often enough, eventually your brain will realize that it's a pattern, and the brain will do it for you. The first time you go to work, you have to know, am I going to turn right? Am I going to turn left? Now you go to work, and it's like, if you're still working, and it's like automatic. Because the things that we do regularly, our brain starts recognizing it. So if you this perennial lockage, or every time you leave the car, you'll create a pattern in your brain. A lot of patients is when they get up in the morning. That's the best time to do your exercise because your bladder is full and you can feel it. So you think, before I go to the bathroom, I will squeeze the pelvic floor and turn on the side, put your feet on the floor. Don't put too much pressure on your bladder, because if you get out of bed really quickly, your abdominals are working. So get up gradually and you'll be fine. Before you swing at golf, a lot of my patients play golf, and some have stopped playing golf after surgery, and it's not a nice thing. You like this game. So I know you have to think about a lot of things when you swing, but you can do your perennial lock before, and before you raise your grandchild, any effort. And you will see on your diary that this is when I have leakage, so that is where I'm going to do this exercise. And eventually your brain will figure it out. Another thing that is a reflex that's been discovered is when you squeeze, you're not just closing the bladder. This is a bladder that has no prostate. There's a reflex that goes into the spine and comes back. It's a message that is conveyed through the nerves of the sphincter to the spine, and it says to the bladder, calm down. The man doesn't want to go to the bathroom right now. So this is really a message that you can use. Let's say that today, right now, during the conference, you have urgency. You feel you need to go. You have to say, okay, you have to calm it through your brain, but your muscles. So squeeze your muscle, and that will inhibit. It will say, it'll tell the bladder, give yourself more space. It's not time to go to the bathroom. We can also use your brain to calm your bladder. It's not psychological. It's what we call neurophysiological. Some people, when they get all day, you think, I'll go to the bathroom when I go home. I'll go to the bathroom when I get home. And as soon as you put your keys in the door, your brain says, okay, time to go. So it's really your brain that works like that, that's always saying to the bladder, not time to go, not time to go. So you have to talk to your brain. A lot of patients says it's psychological. It happens every time I get home. It's because the inhibitors in your brain stop working. So at home, instead of thinking I'll go to the bathroom when I sit on the toilet or when I'm standing in front. So you're talking to your brain differently. And when you get home, your brain won't know, but when you're sitting on the toilet or standing in front of it, your brain will go, oh, time to go. And this is really the way it works. It's like Pavlov's. You know, the dogs that salivate when they see food, it's the same thing. We have these triggers in our brain, and we can train them. The other thing are the products, and Dr. Nadeau talked to you about the condom and the clamps. There are also pads, and there are also a lot of different types. I treat males and females, and I think men have a lot of imagination to know how to wear pads. Some have a Scott towel between two pads. They have a lot of imagination. But there are a lot of super good products on the market, and they have things in them that prevent odor. What we suggest is that when you put these, don't use the biggest one. Use the smallest one. And then the question will be, do you have to change your underwear? If so, your pads aren't big enough. So use the smallest ones, and you're not going to to make sure you don't wet your underwear. Like I said, between your brain, if the brain realizes there's a pad there, it'll think, okay, there's a pad there. And if the brain realizes the pad is small, say, don't forget, do your exercises before you cough because there's no pad. This is really the way it works, and this is how we work with our patients. So in conclusion, those are the suggestions I have for you. Keeping a diary to find out how your bladder works so that you can use the strategies properly. Do your exercises for the pelvic floor. Use your brain to control your bladder. Drink water. Avoid coffee. Do your perennial lock before you change positions. Clamps, pads are things you can use if ever your problem is not improved. If with all of this you need help, I'm giving you a lot of advice, but they're physiotherapists who are trained specially in this field to help you. If you are lucky enough to be referred before your surgery, it's better because you can start your exercises before your surgery. Otherwise, you can come post-op, and we can talk about all these strategies. Your physiotherapist has to have special training for conservative strategies for men, and they have a list. You can get a list of all the physiotherapists in your region who work in this field and who are specially trained. So your physio will guide you in applying these strategies and look at your diary with you to help you understand your bladder. Also, another thing you can do, if you're not sure you're exercising properly, we look, but we can do it by through your anus, and we can feel the activity of the muscle. We can help you find the muscle and show it to you. We also biofeedback. It's like an electrode that we put in the anus, and they can read the electric energy in your pelvic floor. When you're at rest, it's like this, and you say, okay, squeeze your muscle and then let go. And seeing that on the screen helps you work speed, endurance, strength. So it makes the training a bit more fun and interesting. And you can really visualize it when you get home. So this is how I was doing it, and you'll imagine the screen, and you can do your exercises. Sometimes you need to see a physio to make sure you're doing it right. Otherwise, it could be just enough to hear about how to do this. Once we show you how to do the biofeedback, we can develop a treatment plan based on your specific needs. So I suggest that you take action. If you're waiting for radical surgery, start your exercises now. If you've had recent surgery, be patient, because your situation can improve over a year and even up to 2 years after surgery. I have seen patients after 3 or 4 years who had never done physio, and we show them the exercises, and we can help them control their bladder when they do certain stress efforts. If it's been, you can still try physio, and there are other techniques that Dr. Nadeau talked about it. But for most people, incontinence can be cured, improved, or managed, and improve your quality of life a great deal. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Claudia Brown. That was super interesting. We're going to open the question period. What I would like to do is to hands up if somebody wants to ask a question so that I can give you the microphone. That way people on the web will be able to understand the question as well as our interpreter. So if you speak without a mic, nobody will understand you except us. So I would ask Dr. Nadeau and Claudia Brown, if ever the question isn't clear, maybe to reformulate it to help people understand. For those of you who are online, you can send questions. You can just press on the question button and we will get them. And I will be able to read them and to share them with Dr. Nadeau and Claudia Brown. So we're opening up the question period. Just raise your hand. Good evening. My question is, when I go to the bathroom, and I feel like I have to go, I urinate. The problem is there's still part of the urine that stays in my penis and it burns. And then I have to wait at least 5-10 minutes before it empties out. I just saw my doctor, I mentioned it, and he's still prescribing pills for this problem. At one point, it's expensive to pay. I would like to know if there is some way to solve this problem without medication. It's always It's always difficult to give a medical opinion quickly like this without having done a complete evaluation, because I don't know about your medical history or the surgeries you've had. Generally speaking, I sometimes have a request for consultation for what we call leakage at the end or after, you're dressed and it's like leaving the bathroom. There are drops in the underwear. This is something that can sometimes be part of, it's not necessarily normal, but it's not necessarily abnormal because of the male anatomy. I'm trying to remain general because here we were talking about post-surgical incontinence, but in some men, end of 30s, beginning of 40s, they have drops at the end when they're leaving the bathroom. So for the urethra, there's a wider space that can sometimes work like a little reservoir. And there are drops that can go in there, and when they get up, the drops will end up in the underwear. One of the things we can do, if you really feel there is urine left, is to empty it by pushing on the perineal with your hand while you're still on the toilet before you pull up your pants. That is the skin between the scrotum and the anus. So by pushing on that, it can help you to evacuate the drops. But for the rest, you'd have to ask for a medical consultation because there can be other anomalies. We could do a cystoscopy with a camera to see, go and see inside the urethra to see if there's any other damage. Because if you urinate when you're sitting down or standing up, it can make a difference. If you urinate sitting down, sometimes it's easier to relax the muscle completely. Some men will start urinating and they stop too quickly. So if you find that muscle and you can really relax it at the end, that can help. And sometimes you could just like coughing a little bit. And the other way, like Dr. Nadeau was saying, you can see here, as she mentioned, you can push here behind the scrotum and you do some pressure. And if you can continue pushing between the testicles and follow that up to the end, it'll help to empty it as much as possible. So being very relaxed, try different positions, standing up, sitting down, and let go of the muscle. I agree with you. These are things that my doctor told me to do and that I do. But sometimes it happens that I think it's finished and it's not finished yet. I could be standing there 10 minutes at a time. I'm going to ask the next question. Thank you very much. On a daily basis, I have 0% incontinence. However, when I'm having sex, I have incontinence beginning and end of the sexual act. As I mentioned before, yes, incontinence during sexual relationships, you're less concentrated on your muscles of the pelvic floor. I will let Madame Brown comment on this. But if it's not enough, yes, I mean, there is no minimal level to consider surgery. It's on an individual basis. There's no degree to say you can never expectations that will be that your correction will be perfect. Is 30 grams intolerable. Well, you know, some people, it's there is no level to consider surgery, and during urine loss during orgasm is part of the symptoms of stress incontinence post-surgery, and can warrant an evaluation to treat the cause. But I probably start, if it's very specific during sex, I would go to first line with Reeducation of the pelvic floor. I don't really have a lot to add. It's just that at the beginning, when you're having sex, it's a very specific at the beginning to maintain an erection. Men will contract the pelvic floor to keep the blood in the penis. If they do that too much at the beginning, the muscle becomes tired. The other thing is that when you have an orgasm, your brain, which is concentrates a lot to contract but with orgasm, we see that in males and females. You're not controlling it as much because the inhibitors in the brain don't work as much because there's a lot of activity going on at that same time. My question is for Dr. Nadeau. I was going to have a strip put in. They called me end of September, but I had to have radiation. I had to cancel after my radiation. Is it going to be possible to have a strip put in? Yes, that's an excellent question. There is no order in terms of do we have to do the surgery before or after radiation, in the sense that the fact that you have radiation could modify how the sphincter, bladder, and urethra function. It could increase the degree of severity. If it's clear that we are going to radiation and the PS is going up and you've talked to your urologist, first of all, it's always the cancer we want to control. That is not even up for discussion, but I also, ideally, if we can delay the surgery to give radiation time to work and see how the bladder will stabilize, and then we will reevaluate if the strip is needed, or maybe even another type of strip, or maybe it might be the sphincter. Because depending on the strip, I may have suggested there's one. Advance would have less good success with people with radiation. Then the efficacy is 50% versus 70% when there hasn't been radiation. So it might not be the best option. But I didn't, it cost 0 cents to have this surgery. Everything is reimbursed by the RAMQ. It won't cost you a dime to see the surgeon or have see the urologist. Thank you. I would like to know, in terms of the Kegel exercise, what is the best time to do them and the best position? For Kegel, at the beginning, it's better to do them lying down because you're going to be able to concentrate on the muscle. When you're lying down, you don't need to think of balance, so you can try lying down. Once you've controlled it lying down, you try it sitting down and standing up, but it's very important to do it standing up because that's when you're going to have leaks most of the time. So we suggest that it's done a series, lying down, one sitting down, and two and standing up. The best moment is when you're not tired. Often our patients will do it in the morning or 2 hours later because we ask them to do it 5 times a day. If you take that resting period, and it's really good to take that rest and can do them once you've rested, start sitting down just to make sure you understand it, and then all 3 positions. The participant says, well, I'm walking also. Yes, walking is okay. If you walk more and if you walk and you have leaks, every corner of the street, squeeze the muscle, keep it for 20 seconds. Next corner, do it again. Or each telephone pole. I have a question here from the web. Is there intestinal incontinence after radiation? Based on my knowledge of urology, yes, there are modifications. We increasingly try to target the prostate with radiation, brachy, but there are radiation that can affect the nearby the prostate, like the rectum, and sometimes it might bleed a bit, and there might be changes in the transit, like diarrhea or fecal incontinence. It's rare, but not impossible. But it is certainly worth talking about this to the radiology specialist or your urologist. It is a consequence that we see quite often with radiation. The rectum loses its elasticity, so it has a hard time holding it in, and it can also affect the pelvic floor. So the exercises are recommended for that reason. For me, it's at breakfast. I have coffee, and it's 15 minutes. I go to the bathroom, and everything comes out perfectly, and it's easy. In other cases, I'll have a beer or 2. And I'll get rid of about a quarter of it, and then I have to go back every 15 minutes. Is there an explanation to that? A while ago, you said, for me, coffee is like a diuretic. It makes me urinate every morning. You say when you have beer, you have a hard time urinating? Well, coffee goes directly to the muscle of the bladder. It's a smooth muscle, and it reacts to caffeine. So when the bladder is full and it wants to empty out, it's really a contraction. And coffee causes a contraction. I don't really know understand what you said about beer. You have to go 2 or 3 times? Well, it could be that the beer doesn't have the contracting effect on the bladder. We also see people when they drink beer, they have more problem because of the reaction of the beer in their brain. We see people having problems to control. Is there another reason? No. My question is for Dr. Nadeau, my urologist. Vesicare prescription. I think that I have stress incontinence, so I don't think it'll work for that. Like I mentioned, in 2/3 of the case, it'll be stress-related incontinence, but in 1/3 of the case, there's mixed. It's hyperactive bladder and stress-related. And that medication affects the bladder. So often, in some patients, it's really worth trying the medication to correct the spasms of the bladder. But if you have good stress incontinence too, you might not see a big difference with the medication. But this is a medication that I will use for certain patients, that one or another one in the same class. But that is why we need to do cystoscopy. And with the questions we can ask our patients, it tells us sometimes that there's hyperactive bladder. So even with a strip surgery, the strip will correct stress incontinence. And it's sometimes after putting in a strip that the patient will realize there is also hyperactive bladder. Because even if there's no leakage when I'm laughing, sneezing, but I have to run to the bathroom. So it's really too great. It is incontinence in both cases, but it can be one or the other or both. If there's a high component of stress incontinence, if this product is well tolerated, I would encourage you to continue using it and to talk to your doctor about this. When we have stress incontinence, should we continue to stress it out? Well, being active is always good for your health. It is not going to hinder, but you have to respect the guidelines of convalescence. But a year after surgery, do your Kegel exercise, and if you can limit yourself, you have to continue to be as active as possible. And with the data that we had in Ontario, men need surgery as time goes on, and it is never too late to consult. We say there is a potential to recuperate up to 24 months, and then you reach a plateau. But if it's 5, 7, 10, 15 years, it's never too late. I also have a question for my urologist gave me a prescription for a consult in physiotherapy. I think he doesn't feel that I can do my own exercise. Do we have to go to private, or can we get this through a hospital? I think now it's offered in most places a private consultation. In Montreal, there are 2 hospitals where you can consult for that, but it's for women's incontinence. In Quebec City, I don't know. No. Most places is private. You have to pay the physiotherapist. But you don't need to do 8 or 10 treatments. But there's some we can look at your exercises, help you with the diary, give you advice, and maybe see you 6 weeks later. I usually see my patients once or twice, and just a follow-up, especially if they know how to do the exercise. We want to make sure you're doing it right. There are a lot of different ways of training your muscle, and we can put you on a program. So if I call the association, I can get the names of physiotherapists in my area. Yes, and oppq.qc.ca. You put your postal code, and you will find. Some do only females, but it's all written on the site. Are there any other questions? For me, it's mostly at night. I wake up 5 or 6 times to urinate. I have to make a bit of an effort because I want to go back to sleep. So I wonder, I always have a urinal next to my bed. I had surgery for prostate and radiation. That was 5 years ago, 2010. I had a lot of complications. But I went through this, and because of the literature, exercise, walking, like, that has helped me a lot to be active instead of passive. So that helped me a bit. In terms of erections, they're not as good as they used to be. But there are schools of thought that say that it's good, and others that say, in my case, that abstinence is also very good. It's like a lifestyle. That's what I wanted to say, and it's good for me to talk about this. One thing for the fact that you go often during the night, sometimes, like if you go too often during the day, your bladder is not used to getting bigger. I usually go 2 or 3 times during the day. Do your feet swell at the end of the day? No. If your feet swell, it means that you have more urine in your system. The other thing is that if you have sleep apnea, I take sleeping aids because there are people who have sleep apnea and incontinence at night. But when I work too much, I get home and I feel like my testicles have gotten bigger. But the next day, it's back to normal. You might need a physical exam. I would recommend that you talk to your radio oncologist or your urologist. And the other thing I would add is to be very careful about the liquids that you drink at night. You should stop drinking after 7 o'clock. I talked a lot about radiation. It also has consequences on the urethra and the rectum, and it will make the tissue less elastic. So that could be one of the effects. But there are several things to evaluate. I didn't hear what he said. Being constipated is one of the horrible things in North America because of our diet. But making an effort to urinate, that isn't good. The bladder should not require an effort. Especially when you urinate, you shouldn't have to make an effort versus having a bowel movement. But that may require a good physical exam with an ultrasound to make sure that your bladder is fine. My question is for Madame Brown. After my surgery, I had illegal injections that have hindered my muscle. I have a bit of urinary leaks now. I consider myself lucky, but with the Kegel exercise, is there a way of coming back? I'm still on illegal. My PSA would go up and down. They had it causes a decrease in its hormone therapy. It decreases the mass of muscle. A muscle can always be strengthened, and it's always worth it. It's not just reinforcing the muscle if you use it at the right time. Like I said, if you realize that you have leaks when you do certain activities, you exercise first. That could help you. Thank you very much. I have one last question before. Of all of the therapeutic measures that you suggest, strip, sphincter, physiotherapy, what is reimbursed by the RAMQ and what isn't? If I understand, the physio is not reimbursed, it's done in a private clinic. And all of these surgeries are. But it's a procedure. The majority of the time it works well, but there's no risk in doing physiotherapy. You can do that at home every day, and that's why we call it first line. And like Madame Brown mentioned, I think it's worth physiotherapists who are trained for reeducation of the pelvic floor. They did a master's. They are really specialists. They spend more time with you than the doctor can. There's a lot of education. They can do a lot of education, so I think it is worth consulting, even if it's just for 1 or 2 sessions, if you can't afford the whole plan. And part of people have private insurance for physiotherapy, but for the surgery, everything is paid for. And investing in physiotherapy, urinary protection pads are very expensive and they are not reimbursed. So I think it is worth taking advantage of all the tools that are available to you. Thank you very much, Dr. Nadeau and Claudia Brown. This ends the session. For questions that haven't been answered, we have them jotted down, and within the next few weeks, you will find them on our website in the question and answer section. I know this is a conference that raised a lot of questions, and I was able to read some comments that we received. There's a certain form of frustration. Should I do Kegel exercises for the rest of my life, and are there other solutions? I saw there was a good message of hope, and you may not have to do Kegel for the rest of your life. You have to talk to your doctor. You have to see what the other solutions are. It is an approach that we promote, but if it doesn't work, then I think you mustn't remain silent, and you have to talk about the different solutions that are available to you. The best thing is to have the diary and to be well prepared to have this discussion. I thought tonight's conference to be very interesting. Just a few points before we leave. You received a survey. If you could fill it out and give it back to us, that would be great. This allows us to determine the subjects of the conferences we're going to have. We want to make sure that the tools we develop meet your needs. And for those of you who are online, before you leave the web, just click at the bottom on the right, and you will access to the survey that is online directly. For those of you who might be in the Montreal region, Around November 9th, there is a mini cafe at Hôtel Bonaventure with 2 urologists. It's an interactive question and answer period with Luc Valiquette and Fred Sad, and it will be on prostate cancer and incontinence and erectile dysfunction and the tools available in 2015. You just need to go on our site to get the information. For those who want to review the conference, it will be on YouTube within a week. You will receive an email saying that it is available. In closing, we tell you to wear a bow tie November 19th. It is the Quebec Day for Prostate Cancer Awareness. You could wear it even all through November because this is really Prostate Cancer Month. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for everybody online. And I will see you again in April 2016.